On the Gamebridge Ball State Cardinals Sports Network from Learfield. Welcome to This Week in Ball State Sports, a Ball State athletics podcast, highlighting the Cardinals athletic teams and administration each week, presented by Gamebridge. Here's the voice of the Cardinals, your host, Mick Tidrow.
Hey, Cardinals fans, this is episode 26 of This Week in Ball State Sports, and we have a fun show because there's a lot of football conversation coming up. We'll talk with Super Bowl champion and Ball State football alum Nick Jones. Also have a conversation with Dan Fahrner over at High and Mighty with our sponsorship with them. He's a Ball State grad as well, so really cool conversation with High and Mighty and how Chirp Chirp Cherry became to be. And one of your favorite drinks is now going to be spotlighted even more here at Ball State Athletics. But first, Director of Athletics Jeff Mitchell joins us. Jeff, we appreciate you joining us on episode 26. There's a lot to talk about this week.
There is, Mick. Thank you for having me.
So let's just jump into this whole football situation because there's a schedule drop that's happening. There's a new team joining the Mid-American Conference, but let's start off with that football schedule. First and foremost, Jeff, it's a home game to start off the fall this year at Schumann Stadium.
Yeah, we're looking forward to kicking off the season on September 7th against Missouri State. You know, we've got a little bit of an interesting schedule coming up, Mick, because we were originally slated to start the season on August the 30th, I think. And that got disrupted by the fact that Army, whom we were supposed to play at home, joined the American Athletic Conference this past year and elected to join the league for the fall of 2024, which means that they dropped from an independent status as a football program to joining the American Athletic Conference. And so they had to drop a lot of games. And unfortunately, one of the games that they had to drop was our game here at Schumann Stadium. These games are contracted many years in advance. And when a team drops another team, there's often a financial penalty, which there was in this case. And then the team that's left without a game has to scramble to find a game. And due to the late nature of the switch, we were able to pick up Vanderbilt, but that was deeper in the season. And so we're technically starting our football season a week later than everybody else. But we are going to be in practice on the same date as everybody. So we won't limit the number of practice opportunities that our guys get. But we're really excited about the home opener on September 7th against Missouri State. Then we're going to go on the road for a little bit and play at Miami, Florida. Open our conference slate at Central Michigan on September 21st. And then go travel to a Sun Belt opponent on September 28th against James Madison. And then we open our conference home slate on Saturday, October 5th against Western Michigan. That'll be a community/family weekend. So we'll make it a big day for the city of Muncie and the East Central Indiana region. And then we travel to Kent State and then at Vanderbilt. And then homecoming is October 26th against Northern Illinois. And then we get into MACtion play, in the November timeframe, Mick.
Here we go.
And we can talk about those in just a second.
Yeah, Jeff, that's the start of the season. That's 5 road games out of the first 7 games of the schedule. The only home ones, that first one you mentioned, Missouri State at home, and then family weekend. That's just how it pans out this year, like you mentioned, because of the changes with Army joining a conference and then Ball State having to pick up that Vanderbilt game on the road. But pretty highlighted with the first game being at home and then Western Michigan family weekend also within those first 7 games.
Yeah, the football scheduling is really difficult. Not many people understand that scheduling 4 non-conference games is a significant challenge, and you have to do it so many years in advance, as I mentioned earlier. But sometimes it shakes out where you don't really have control over when you can play some of those games, and the conference schedule factors in a little bit. And so, we're looking at having to go on the road for 3 consecutive games after our home opener, but that's part of it. And when you talk to Coach New says, "Bring it on." Well, we're going to get ready to play, regardless of who the opponent is and regardless of where it is. And I think that's the attitude you have to have, especially when you go into the gauntlet of playing, 12 games in 13 weeks. Wrapping up our schedule, Mick, on the MAC side, November 5th is a Tuesday, and we will host Miami of Ohio. And then we will travel the following Tuesday to Buffalo to play the Bulls. And then on Saturday, November 23rd, that's the Saturday before Thanksgiving, we will host Bowling Green and then conclude the season with a Friday matchup on that's November 29th. That's the day after Thanksgiving. We will travel to Ohio to take on the Bobcats. So looking forward to 2024 and the football season.
So Jeff, we mentioned the 5 road games in the first 7 games, but then on the back half of that, you mentioned some of the action games midweek. Ball State able to host 3 out of the last 5 weeks, just on the road for Buffalo and at Ohio for the last 5 games. So interesting scheduling quirks. Only 5 home games for the Cardinals this year, just like you mentioned, because the Army dropped the Vanderbilt ad on the road. Jeff, so there's also some other news across the Mid-American Conference that broke last week. UMass joining the conference to make it a 13-team conference. What are your thoughts overall about that?
Well, I think adding UMass is a good pickup for the league. It certainly adds some exposure in that East Coast or that Northeast Coast corridor that we don't have. And there's still some geographic alignment with adding an institution in Massachusetts connected to New York. But I think that over time, we'll see that it's a very favorable addition to the league. UMass is an excellent institution. It certainly adds to the dynamic of the type of academic institutions that we have as a league. And competitively, I think they will add, particularly in some sports such as basketball, an added value with regard to the success or the future success of the league in those sports. Ryan Bamford, their athletics director, is an accomplished AD. I've known him for a long time. He's done a great job at UMass. And UMass is trying to position itself to be in a league that is going to continue to be relevant. I think in the new college athletic space, we've welcomed them to join our league beginning in in 2025, and effective for the 25-26 academic and athletics year. And they were interested in the MAC, and particularly from a football standpoint. They're independent as well. We talked about Army being independent and going to the American. UMass is yet another independent that is joining a league. They're the third one in probably in the last 12 to 18 months to make a leap, or third in the last 2 years, maybe to make that move. Liberty was also independent in football and joined the Sun Belt recently. So, joined Conference USA recently. And so between Liberty and Army and UMass, you've got some programs that are joining leagues that need to do so from an FBS standpoint, just as the reconfiguration of the college football playoff system and the revenue that is tied to that for institutions. It's hard to survive as an FBS institution without being part of a league.
You mentioned the benefits for the conference and UMass as well. What are some of those benefits for the conference to add in UMass and a 13th team?
Well, I don't know that we fully can appreciate the scope of it yet, Mick. I think that's going to come in time as the league negotiates a new television deal. I think, though, from a viewership standpoint, that it'll have to factor in to some extent, because there's just going to be more eyeballs now viewing action, particularly in a heavy TV market in the Northeast corridor. I think from a standpoint of potentially attracting another team down the line, I think you'll see that. There are certainly no movement, or there is no movement right now towards adding a 14th team, but an odd number of teams is difficult from a scheduling standpoint, and so I do think at the right time there will be an addition. Certainly, we'll be pushing for that, but as we record this, and certainly as this episode drops, Mick, there's not a 14th team to announce, but we like what UMass offers. It's a like institution. I think a lot of the sports that it sponsors are going to be able to assimilate into our league very well, and I think that the student athletes on every one of our 13 campuses now in the league will enjoy another or a heightened level of competition with them joining the league.
Always interesting time in the MAC because of the addition of a program and schedule drop for football. It's start of March, and football conversations always continue to turn the wheels. Jeff, to turn our attention to some of the sports happening in action right now. First, starting off with men's volleyball, a couple of wins against Queens. They've won 6 straight. This is a team that's in the top 12 of the national rankings right now, and first place in the MIVA at this point. Jeff, how have you seen them continue to get better and better, especially through this last 6-game stretch?
Well, they're hitting their stride and playing at a high level. To now be in first place by themselves is quite a testament to this team and how it continues to develop. Coach Cruz and his staff have, I think, found a lineup that's fairly deep, that plays well together and puts themselves in good rotations. And the guys are beginning to execute really, really well. And that was on full display over the weekend against Queens. We go into this week off where the team is going to travel to Puerto Rico and do some community service down there and train. And I think they come back to the second half of the season ready to continue to excel. Talking to the coaches after the match on Sunday and talking to some of the student athletes, they are excited about the second half of the season. And I think that's really where you want to be as you go into the back half of your season, regardless of sport. So these guys are a connected group and are playing really well. So we have some big matches coming up, and certainly some of those are inside Worthen. So circle some of those dates on your calendar and get your tickets and come watch us play. It's high-level volleyball. Hopefully we'll continue to climb the rankings, sitting at 12th as we record this, Mick, but hopefully can crack the top 10 here soon.
We also have more MAC champions. Callie Tuma taking home the MAC championship honors in the women's swimming and diving front, the 1650 freestyle. Saw Janelle Rogers win some championships in indoor track and field, and now Callie continuing to add to that for Ball State.
Yeah, really excited for Callie. She's a talented athlete, and so was pleased to see her win that 1650 freestyle. And we just continued to applaud the effort that Callie and her teammates put in. A 5th place overall finish in the MAC championships this past weekend. Jay Agnew does a great job with that program and with our men's program. And he maximizes, the effort that these young ladies and young men demonstrate in the pool every day. So with Callie and her teammates, proud of them and excited for the continued growth of that program. And the men's championships is coming up soon, and look forward to seeing what they can do as well.
Peyton Kelly also joining Callie on first team all-conference honors for the women's swim and dive program. So excellent performance on their side. Jeff, we look at what men's golf did last week. They put up a -28, and they were able to break some records in the program books. So just another awesome performance for that squad led by Coach Fleck.
Yeah, a great performance. Finished second overall in that tournament of 15, I believe. So anytime you can, uh, finish in the top three, is quite the accomplishment, and to do it, yeah, really um, in a setting that was unfamiliar, being in Puerto Rico, to do that was very, very impressive. So excited for that team. I think they'll be in the hunt as we advance this spring, and to look forward to their continued success on the golf course. Those guys are dialed in how they play, and despite the fact that it is an individual sport, it is a team sport at the same time, and they find a way to help each other and propel the team forward while also working on their individual game and individual scores.
The men's golf, great performance in Puerto Rico. The women's golf team is going to be in Puerto Rico as well. They start tomorrow. Baseball, softball, a couple of good wins this past weekend too, Jeff. Baseball series victory. Softball picked up a couple of wins too.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what golf can do on the women's side this week in Puerto Rico. And yeah, applaud baseball and softball for earning a pair of wins. Baseball earned a series in Jacksonville. That was a series disrupted by a lot of weather, and so it wasn't the smoothest of weekends. Friday night's game got canceled. Saturday's first game of the series, the Cardinals won, and then game two, the Cardinals had to rally back from a pretty significant deficit to take the lead, only to have the game suspended. Then it got pushed back until late on Sunday. They finished that game, and then unfortunately dropped game three, but a series win nonetheless. And they'll continue their Florida tour early this week. They play at FAMU on Tuesday and Wednesday before returning home, and then opening MAC play against Eastern Michigan this weekend for a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series. And then softball also tripped up with weather a little bit, but did earn a pair of wins, going 2-2 on the weekend. And proud of that team as they continue to fight and continue to improve. So look forward to continuing growth in both of those programs as we continue in the spring seasons.
Women's basketball just had its third 1,000-point scorer of the season. Andy Roush hit that mark on her senior day a couple of days ago in a win that helped Ball State only one loss, all home slate for back-to-back seasons. That came against a nationally ranked program, Jeff. Basketball finishes the home schedule on a high note, 2 games on the road for them to finish up the regular season before MAC play, before the MAC.
So proud of Annie for hitting that 1,000 career point plateau. And everybody in the gym knew that she was about to hit that mark. And it came down to some free throws, and the ball just wouldn't go in a couple of those times. And it was nearing the end of the game, and people were pulling for her, and she felt it, and she hit that last free throw to put her at that 1,000-point mark, and the place goes bananas. And it was just a really cool scene, and certainly on the way to a convincing win for Ball State as well. It's hard to come up with other things to say, other praises and adulation to say about women's basketball right now, because they've been playing so well. They've had a great season. I do want to take the opportunity, Mick, to thank our fans for their loyal support throughout the year. We've had great crowds. We've had very enthusiastic game day atmospheres at those games throughout the season, and that matters. It's a distinctive home court advantage, and we are grateful for our fans coming out each game. And that being said, we need that same energy on Tuesday as this episode drops for the final men's game of the season, final men's home game of the season, so that we can try to get in the win column, because on the men's side, we still are in the hunt to make the conference tournament. We got to win a pair of games and got to have a little help, but the big one on Tuesday coming up against Kent, we need everybody to come in and cheer for us.
That wraps up the basketball slate here at home inside Worthen Arena. But again, like Jeff said way back at the beginning of this episode, check out ballstatesports.com because we have plenty of home events in Worthen with other sports. We have plenty of events coming up at home outside sports-wise with baseball, softball, and others starting to take place too. So get your tickets, get your spots. Check out ballstatesports.com. Call 888-BSU-TICKET for all of your ticket needs. Jeff, before we let you go, anything else you want to say to the Muncie community? Football related, basketball related, anything related? Floor is yours.
Yeah, we continue to be growth minded. I visited with our loyal fans after or before the men's basketball game this past Saturday after Coach Lewis came and gave the pregame chalk talk and just thanked them for their continued support. We're topsy-turvy right now in intercollegiate athletics. It's every day it seems to be a new adventure, but the one thing that remains constant is that Ball State is a great place. And, we're doing things that are going to propel our student athletes to be leaders and winners, not only during their time at Ball State, but also within their respective communities as they leave Ball State. Our fans have a lot to do with that by the support, whether they come in as a casual observer or if they're season ticket holders. A lot of them certainly are generous benefactors to our programs in various ways. That level of support is so meaningful to what we do, and we have a chance, I think, to continue to be great and to dominate the MAC, and that's something that is really important to me. And I'm excited about our staff across the board. I'm excited about our student athletes, and I want to continue to driving that success. And we need all the help that we can get from our fans, and we just appreciate them. So, at the end of every season, you have the opportunity to celebrate your fans and to thank them and appreciate them. And I certainly thank you, Mick, for giving us the opportunity to celebrate them and to thank them for their loyalty and their support through thick and thin sometimes. This is a great place. We're doing great things here, and really excited about our future.
And it's possible, like you said, in large part due to the fans and everybody that shows up and continues to support Ball State athletics. Well, Jeff, we appreciate your time as always here on episode 26 of This Week in Ball State Sports. We'll talk with you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. Go Cards.
Sometimes it's not the moment. It's the moment before the moment. The moment you make a choice. The moment you take control. The moment only you can own. Gainbridge lets you invest on your terms. So you're not only in charge of this moment, but all the moments to come. Start investing now at Gainbridge.io.
We have a special guest today, Super Bowl champion, Ball State football alum, Nick Jones, back in the house here at the indoor facility. Nick, really appreciate you taking some time with us today.
I appreciate being back. I always love coming back home.
Nick, before we get to the Super Bowl, the fun stuff at the Kansas City Chiefs, you had a chance to talk with the team after today's first day in practice for spring ball. What did that mean to you to be able to come back and do that?
It meant the world to me, because I used to be these kids, and we had guys that came before me, and I actually caught up with Willie at the Super Bowl, but first time to meet him. We had guys that came through before me, and, they paved the way. I wanted to be like those guys, so I just always want to put a name to a face. Let the guys know that, I was you one day and that it's attainable to get to where I am.
You mentioned Willie Snead. I want to go down that route real fast. How special was it to be able to meet him in Vegas and have that 49ers versus Chiefs competition within Ball State football too?
Man, it was cool just because, for my 4 years, his name and his face is on, every wall in the building. He had all the records and everything for the receivers. So, to me, I knew about him before I even knew he went to Ball State, when I was just coming up and seeing him play. So to know he came out of here and he was the guy, I was like, oh, I can do that, So just to see him and actually get to meet him, you the guy, behind all the myths.
Nick, when you were speaking to everybody here today at the football practice, everybody's attentive, listen to what you're saying. What was it like for you to be able to do that when you were 4 years ago sitting right there where they were at?
Man, it means everything just because I wanted to, even while I was here, I always tell myself I wanted to be somebody that young guys could look up to and use as an example just because I credit that, a lot of that to my success. Coming up in the DB room, playing behind the Antonio Phillips and the Bryce Cosbys, the Ray Wilborns, coming up with the A.J. Uzademas. We had such a strong culture in the room that the leaders are easy to follow, and I wanted to be that guy. And on my way out, I felt like I was. So to come back, and give it back to them, I want the leaders in the room now to be those guys for their young guys, just to, keep the culture strong.
Nick, you were drafted this year
First year in the league, rookie season. How would you describe how the first year went for you personally?
Crazy, turbulent. Definitely, still the longest year of my life just because I left here, went to train, and played all the way through February. But definitely, full of highs. I don't even think about the lows just because everything that came with this rookie year, I think was meant to come. I couldn't even put it into words if I could tell you how it feels to win a Super Bowl.
Draft combine, pro days are all coming up here in a few days. And when you sit back and think about those memories, getting ready for the draft, getting ready to go to the NFL, how did all of that prepare you to get ready for this year?
I think it put me through the test, honestly. I almost call it a stress test just because preparing for the draft and preparing for the combine, it's probably more stressful than the actual day just because you don't know, like, am I getting faster? Am I moving up these boards? You seeing projections. One day you're going here, the next day you're going here. Then on draft day, you don't go where any of the projections said you were going. You go somewhere completely different. So I definitely say it prepared me just because the stress that comes with being in the league is a lot more than I thought. But it helps you manage it just knowing that, you got through it before.
You see your phone ring on draft day. Kansas City Chiefs are calling. Who's the one that calls you, and what was that conversation like?
It was a general manager. So we were talking, and it was great because, like, he passed the phone around to all the coaches. I got to talk to the D coordinator. I got to talk to Coach Reed, my corner coach and stuff. And it was just a great feeling because of all the places that I heard from or that came around, like, pre-draft, I want to say I heard from them, like, one of the least of the teams in the league. Like, I got to meet with their corners coach at the combine. We had a meeting. We sat down and we talked for a good while. I liked him a lot. But I didn't think, like, even the day of, like, teams were texting me that morning, like, guys from teams, like, coaches, today's the day we make you this or that. So I'm like, okay. The Chiefs called. I said, this is crazy. Because I didn't even know who it was until he literally, pushed the phone like, Nick, this is Brad Veach. Woo, woo, woo. So I was like, man, this is crazy.
And when you had the chance to let that sink in, get to Kansas City, what was that process like for you just to be getting the stages of your NFL career?
It definitely, I say it was smooth. I got there and they made the adjustment as smooth as possible for me just because, they had expectations for every guy that they drafted.
Yeah.
And they had expectations for every guy in the building. And it was simple. You get right, adhere to them, where you get left. And I was a guy, I was ready to hit the ground running, and I bought in the culture they had. They got a strong culture already set. Obviously, it was a winning franchise, been winning forever. So that's another place, just like Ball State. Like, it was easy to follow the leaders, the culture, the tradition, to get in where you fit in just because everybody there knows what it takes to win. So if you just do what everybody else is doing, you'll turn into a winner.
Who helped you most along the way this first year for you?
I would say it's a handful of guys. In camp, it was a guy named DiCaprio Boodle. He definitely, dropped some game on me pretty much every day because we played the same thing, and he had been there for 2 years and things of that nature. And he recognized, what I was there for and that they had plans and things for me. And he never went out of his way to, I would say he always went out of his way, just to make sure that I got there. Like, it was things that I wouldn't understand or things within the concept. So definitely him. And during the season, a guy named Deion Bush, older guys, 7-8-year vet. And, we were also in familiar situations just because, he was, an older guy, but he was mostly a special teamer, and he made a long career out of that. He just won his second Super Bowl. And he, after, when that was my role and I was coming into that trying to, keep a job on special teams, he was the guy that would put me on to the things he did or the tips he used, that helped him win a job for all those years.
You mentioned making a job, keeping a job on special teams. Everybody knows what it's like when you get to the NFL. It's tough. Every day you got to keep your job. You've got somebody right behind you. How did that mentality help you keep moving forward and be somebody that can be relied upon for the Chiefs?
Definitely just knowing that, they expect me to do the job. They didn't give it to me. They felt like I earned it. And I wore that, with a badge of honor because if we're going to go off and win a Super Bowl, I want to help, So just knowing that, they trusted me with this role and they believed in me, I don't want to let them down because they believe in all 53 guys, and all 47 or however many it is going to suit up on this game. So the fact that, they chose me, to be worthy enough to have that job, I didn't want to let anybody down. So just knowing that, well, if I do, they got a guy, ready to go. I didn't want to be the guy to, lose my job.
Nick, how heavy is the Super Bowl trophy?
It's not that heavy. It's it's kind of heavy. I would say it's about, I get they're not the same. It's about the same size as the MAC championship trophy. It's
okay.
Bad. It's not too bad. It's real solid, though.
When you were able to hold it for the first time, where's your brain at?
I couldn't believe I'm really holding. In the locker room, and they pass it around on the plane. I took so many pictures with it. I said, this is the real thing, not a replica. I felt like a kid all over again, little kid playing Madden, winning a Super Bowl and grabbing my Little League trophy, acting like I won it, I'm in my basement. Like, that was everything to me.
When you had a chance to take it in, and we talked a little bit before we jumped on the podcast, Nick, like you still haven't felt like you've taken this in fully because the experience is so surreal. What have these last couple of weeks been like for you?
It's been me trying to take it in. Like, I've been relaxing, and I just can't help but keep watching the YouTube or going through my phone, looking at the pictures. And, you get a call or a text here and there every single day. And, and it's all people talk about. And it makes it more, like, that much more surreal to me just because every time I have a conversation about it and people say congratulations or this or that, or they introduce me as such and such Super Bowl champ, I'm like, I really won the Super Bowl. I still feel the same way as I felt when the clock hit 0. I'm like, I really just won the Super Bowl.
How do you think that your journey has helped you feel that way and be so grateful for it?
I think because I went through the fire here. I came to a program, by choice. Like, I chose to come here and because I wanted to help make it better. And I realized what it took for us to climb out that mud and get to a MAC championship. And I saw how hard it was to even get a sliver of that back. Like, we won a MAC championship and never made it back. So I understand how hard it is to win in this game. And the league is that amplified times 1,000. Like, I hear the stories of guys who've never won a playoff game or things of that nature. So to get to the pinnacle of the sport, knowing that you might not ever be back, to get there, man, it was so sweet. Just because I know how much it took for us to get here. And there's guys here that didn't win anything, and they showed up in Kansas City, and now they have a Super Bowl. And you realize, like, winning isn't for everybody. It really isn't for everybody. It takes a village.
You talk about Ball State being a special place to you, Nick. How did this place help you prepare to be an NFL Super Bowl champion?
I think that just prepared me to be a pro. I had to go without so much here just because, like, they give you all you need but not all you want, and you look at other places and programs, and you always start to think, the grass is greener elsewhere. But I feel like it's green, wherever you watered it. Like, I could have easily been cut, or I could always wish, like, man, I was on another team, or I could have been fed up with my role. But it was, I remember for 4 years, it took a while to get some wins, and it took a while for me to become the guy that I wanted to be at Ball State. So I appreciated, the grind that came with it. I got hurt, when I first went out there to Kansas City. It took me back to my junior year when I got hurt and I lost the rest of my season here. Like, I appreciate the grind that comes with these things because I know it's waiting on the other end.
Right, so you're saying that you've been through that stuff from college and that prepares you for the NFL.
Absolutely. And I think it's less and more like a football thing. Everybody talks about, the big games and the level of competition. I think it's just your circumstances. If I grinded and made it out of Ball State, I like to believe that, I can go off and win a job anywhere because they don't just come get the guys from Ball State. You got to make them watch you. And then when you get their attention, you got to get to the league and you got to keep it. And the fact that I was able to do that, I think I can do it anywhere.
Nick, before we let you go, you're a Super Bowl champion in your first year. How do you want to build off of that and make this something that's everlasting throughout your career?
Win another one. I think the best thing I could do for myself is win another one. And the longer you play, the more you give yourself a chance. I want to be a guy that, you look at, you walk through these hallways back here and, you see mannequin in the front hallway, pictures on the wall, things like that. And it's multiple Super Bowls and it's Pro Bowls and it's a 10-plus year career. I feel like the best thing I could do with this one is add to it. Like, it's definitely been fun celebrating. And I love, talking about it and things of that nature. But I feel like it's only worth something if you go get another one.
That's a great way to end it, Nick. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming back, speaking with us, and being such a good representative of Ball State football.
Thank you. I appreciate you always. This is home.
Sometimes it's not the moment. It's the moment before the moment. The moment you make a choice. The moment you take control. The moment only you can own. Gainbridge lets you invest on your terms. So you're not only in charge of this moment, but all the moments to come. Start investing now at Gainbridge.io.
We're joined by our friends over at High and Mighty today, and Dan Fahrner, kind enough to join us here on This Week in Ball State Sports. Dan, we appreciate your time and your partnership with High and Mighty and Ball State Athletics.
Howdy, Mick. Thanks for having me.
Dan, it's pretty cool that High and Mighty and Ball State Athletics have this partnership, and it's near and dear to your heart too, right? This is something that's not just a partnership; it's a unique opportunity.
No, absolutely. I'm a Ball State alum myself. I graduated in 2006. Chirp, chirp. And I was a member. I went through the entrepreneurship program at Ball State. So a lot of what I learned there was very helpful in building a business plan and getting our distillery off the ground here in Indianapolis. So I would say that, not only is the partnership fun. It's fun to go back to Muncie and for it to be, like a personal experience. But I was also given the tools to be able to start this business through working at Ball State myself.
What sparked your business interest when you were at Ball State?
Oh, good question. When I was at Ball State back in the early 2000s, the entrepreneurship program was ranked very highly at the time and had some really, really strong leadership. I'm sure it still does today, but I was, very aware of it at the time just because it was being marketed heavily or promoted because, there was awards being won and things like that. And so it was just very exciting and I was attracted to it. And my parents are entrepreneurs and had started their own businesses. And so that kind of gave me the confidence and they'd always pushed me in that direction to a degree. So it gave me the confidence to jump in and try something that I knew would be a challenge for sure, but that ultimately I figured would be pretty rewarding as well. And I was right.
Dan, I have to ask real quick. Did you live on campus when you were a Ball State student?
I did initially, and then I did live off campus as well.
Okay, what dorm did you live in?
I was in Doherty, so I
Doherty.
don't think
Okay.
it exists anymore. Yeah.
Doherty, yeah, it exists.
Okay, awesome.
um, no, that's awesome. Always have to ask that question for Ball State grads just because it's a fun conversation. Dan, when you look at where you've gone from graduating from Ball State to now, how would you describe what the journey's been like for you?
Oh, it's been a total blessing and an absolute blast. I've been very blessed in my career. When I left Ball State, I had graduated through the entrepreneurship program, and at that time, that program, the way that it ended is that you had to present a business plan and it had to be essentially approved in order to graduate as a pass fail. And thankfully, I passed. And I was asked the question, are you going to start this business? And I said, no, I think I'm going to go on tour with my band. So I spent several years playing music professionally and learning a lot about marketing and growing a business. It was a startup business in itself. But then ultimately I shifted over into the marketing world and then made my way into developing a spirits brand. So it's been a fun journey, absolutely. But I certainly would not have the tools to be able to do it if it wasn't for that foundational knowledge.
What kind of band were you in?
Well, I would say that you could call us a modern glam band. We
Okay.
wore makeup. It was really wild and wacky. And the band formed in Muncie, and all my bandmates. I went to school. I was an arts minor, so I met all these folks in the arts program. So they're all Ball State grads as well. And we eventually moved down to Indianapolis and used that as our touring hub because it's the crossroads of America. But yeah, it began in Muncie.
No, that's awesome. Dan, when you talk about the journey to be a part of High and Mighty, how did that journey begin and really take off for you?
Oh, absolutely. Great question. So the business, it's a craft spirits distillery. We're based in Indianapolis, Indiana, and our distillery is actually located at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. That'll come back into play in the story here, but it was started by my wife and myself back in 2020 during the pandemic. We had an itch to go into business together, and we were celebrating our 10-year wedding anniversary around that time, and realized that we wanted to start a business based on our family value of celebration. And we have 4 kids, and during the pandemic, we were young, very, very young at the time. During the pandemic, we had to find small ways to celebrate. And so that was kind of like what kickstarted things. And we realized that, a spirits business was something that in the industry rather, there was really kind of an awakening. There was a lot of excitement about craft spirits, similar to the way that craft beer had grown, for years prior to that. And so anyway, that was kind of how it started. We realized we wanted to go into business together, and then we found the ultimate landing spot in terms of aligning with our value of celebration at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. So we live about 4 blocks from the fair here in Indianapolis, and mutual friends connected us with the fair, and there was immediate interest on both sides to bring this distillery to life inside the fairgrounds and leverage their audience of fairgoers and event goers to help kind of, tell our story. So that's really the journey. And here we are a few years later, and thankful to say that it's worked out better than we could have ever expected.
Yeah, no question, Dan. That's an excellent story of resilience and finding a way, especially with the pandemic hitting and then being a fresh idea for you all. When you look at the partnership now with Ball State Athletics, how special is that for you, being a Ball State grad, being a part of the Muncie community?
Oh, it's so fun. Visiting Ball State and visiting Muncie again so regularly has been a total blast, and just seeing how the campus in the city has grown and changed is been really special. Attending games and seeing the reaction to our product and the partnership has been really special as well. As an example, our first few football games, we sold out a product. In fact, the very first one, I believe, we sold out a product by halftime. And so it's just really exciting. There was just a lot of buzz, and it just kind of brought it all full circle for me.
Chirp Chirp Cherry. We always have to talk about this because it's such a unique drink, a great drink too, by the way. How did that product become what it is today?
Oh, well, that's a great question. So our flagship product is called Lemon Shake Up Canned Cocktail. And so we knew that we wanted to build out the line of Lemon Shake Up into an additional, into multiple varieties. And so in our very first conversations with Ball State, we realized that we wanted to work the angle of the unofficial chirp chirp slogan for Ball State. And so cherry was just such a natural and easy landing spot. I mean, we got there right away with the flavor idea, and then it all just kind of snowballed from there in terms of coming up with the flavor concept and building it off of our lemon shake up. And then one of the things that was really exciting was we actually launched it at the state fair here in 2023. And we got some great PR and just, a lot of really good feedback on it at the time.
Dan, what are the next steps for High and Mighty?
Oh, great question. High and Mighty, at this point, we are focused on building towards the spring and summer season. That's primarily when we see the most action or traction with our business, and that, people are celebrating themselves. They're out, enjoying the warm weather by the pool, or, out on a lake or a golf course or what have you. And so we are actually preparing a few new flavors for this spring and summer. I'm not able to say exactly what they are. They're a surprise today, but I will say that they're probably two of them. I'm sorry, Mick. I don't mean. Yep. The suspense will just have to build, but I will say that they are probably the best flavors that we've had to date. So that is very exciting. And if you stay tuned on our social media, on Instagram or Facebook, we're at Drink High and Mighty, then you can be the first to find out what those new flavors are.
No, that's fantastic. Drink High and Mighty. Everybody check it out on social media. Dan, before we let you go, is there anything else that you'd like Ball State fans to know about High and Mighty?
Oh, just that, well, we're here to stay, and we're looking forward to continuing our partnership with Ball State here in 2024 and seeing what our athletics programs can do, with fresh set of or fresh years or fresh time, I guess, to get back into football season and et cetera. So all that to say, I guess we're just excited to be back into the mix. So we look forward to seeing everybody out at the games, and to we'll have plenty of events going off campus as well, downtown and in the village. So come say hi, and we'll see you out there.
Awesome. Well, Dan, we appreciate your time, your partnership, and your commitment to helping Ball State be as good as it can be. We appreciate it.
All right, rock and roll. Thank you, Mick.
Thanks for listening to This Week in Ball State Sports, presented by Gamebridge. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Gamebridge Ball State Cardinals Sports Network.